Well,
Or
today I'm particularly struck with all the shootings and stabbings and murders that we've heard about here and abroad. Um, Not that that's not always going on, it's always going on. Uh, but sometimes something gets in amongst you and bothers you and makes you re-ask questions. I want to make a couple points that I hope will be fruitful and useful for people, but I know that the real action is when we break out into groups and we go round in our councils. So I'll try to bring these things forward, and I hope that they're of interest or helpful or at least stimulating. So one is that the wonderful, often quoted thing that actually is a kind of a bit of a made-up quotation. Ram Dass said it of Einstein, but you can't find it exactly the way he said it in Einstein, which is that a problem can't be solved at the level of thinking that created the problem. And that's very true. And it's a challenge to us to
thinking.
deepen, heighten, enliven our ways of understanding and knowing, but not to imagine that the trouble we've gotten into through and since the, let's say, the Industrial Revolution is like a problem to be fixed with the same mind that fixed a lot of problems disastrously over the long term, like problems of transportation or energy or communication that turn out to do perhaps world annihilating harm along with all the goods. So the level or kind of consciousness, even the mood of consciousness with which we approach disasters, problems, etc., has been different from this consciousness of the objectivizing, physicalizing, um, deadening Western Northern mind. The level of consciousness has been different around the world through the ages that managed the world perhaps more ecologically. I hear some background something.
Yeah.
I hope that's okay. In any case, so I wanted to bring forth a couple examples, not only, which I think is well understood in this group and the community of people who are likely to be here, not only is it up to us to unknow and to dare to not know. And as Seong San, the Korean Zen master, his slogan that's written on his tomb is only don't know. It's not only up to us to unknow and not know and humble ourselves and release the knowings we already have, but it's also up to us in actually a further humility to dare to know. An example of old style knowing I want to give you from the Kogi of Colombia. I don't know if people here are familiar with that tribe. It's a coastal tribe that preserves their pre-Columbian language and civilization in in the country now known as Colombia. There was a film about them in the 80s or 90s called The Heart of the World by Alan Herrera. I got into them in the sometime in the 80s reading the anthropological work of Reichel Dolmatov, who lived with them and learned their language and so on. And I've been lucky to know two people who've gone and lived among the Kogi and who can confirm some of the reports of how they live. They're run more or less, the culture is organized and held by their priestly class, which is women and men, though mostly men. And these people are raised in a very special way to train their powers of concentration and attention. Every year, to decide how to plant the fields, they have terraced mountain fields with many grains and fruits that help them. through the year that sustain them, their priests go into a state where they get instruction about what to plant in what field specifically from the mountainside itself. They listen to what the mountain tells them and what the gods of the mountain tell them about what's to be planted in each field. And then they go ahead and intentionally plant each field with the spirit of that grain. Then they imbue certain stones that are just pretty well ordinary little bits of stone, imbue them with the spirit of that grain, and they get the farmers to put a few of these stones at the edges of the field. And the third planting, they actually put seed in the field. So they would never dream of just coarsely deciding for themselves what crops they want and then throwing the seeds in the furrows. That's a deeply ecological, involved way of daring to open themselves to what is streaming around them and to act in collaboration, and it ends up being crop rotation and so forth, for the health of their tribe and the mountain. We can't just go back and say, oh, we'll do like the Kogi, because they do what they do based on their original immersion in the spiritual streams of their culture. We can't just go and adopt that. Although there's a lot to be learned from them. So we have a problem of unknowing how we already think we solve problems, face the world, what the world is, with all our wonderful science, how we figured out what's really going on. Unknowing that, but then finding alternative ways of knowing that aren't simply some kind of attempting to adopt something that isn't actually ours. How are we going to do that? I probably don't have better answers to that question than you do, but there are answers, or answers for you, or answers for you on a particular day. I feel like telling a story that's much more, I don't know, humble and not not as beautiful perhaps as the Kogi story, which is years ago with a cousin. We were on an island in Greece. My uncle had a house on this island in Greece, a very and it was in the orchards where the olive trees were. And a neighboring farmer had brought him a rabbit that he'd trapped as a gift. He should eat the rabbit. My uncle had to go to a doctor. So it fell to my cousin and me, we were in our 20s, to take this rabbit that was in a carpet bag and take it to the butcher. But my cousin and I, at the time, were both vegan. So we now had the task of getting this rabbit killed. And it was impressed on us. We'd met the farmer. Of course, we didn't speak any Greek. It was impressed on us how important it was to honor the farmer's gift. So we had to take it and get it slaughtered. Although on the way there, we thought about allowing it to escape out of the car and so on. We were on the way to the butcher. When we got to the butcher's, the butcher had gone home. The place was closed, and we were delighted. We thought, we're home free. We'll take it back to our uncle and my uncle, and it'll be his problem tomorrow when he's back from the doctor. But the butcher's son came forward. He was sweeping up the bloody sawdust, and we were disgusted by the whole thing. And he said, with gestures and so on, in broken English, we had no Greek, that he would do it. He would slaughter this he would kill this rabbit and prepare it for us. And my cousin and I were in terrible moral quandary. We had just gotten off scot-free. Could we escape now and honestly say, the butcher was gone, we couldn't do this? And our eyes locked. We still remember this now, 40 years later. Our eyes locked and we realized this rabbit has to die now. It was completely against our sensibilities. And he came and he slaughtered the rabbit in front of us, and we took it back, and it was in a stew, and we ate it. And we could honor the neighboring farmer of my uncle. Do you follow? So this was a challenging moment for us, and in our moral quandary and against and in great antipathy, we felt and still feel to this day the rightness of that decision. To unknow, but then to dare to know. Now, I do want to emphasize something about knowing, and in that case, with both with the Kogi, the much grander situation, and with my cousin and me, it's not a knowing alone. It's knowing in collaboration, whether it's with the gods, the mountain, the fields, the farmers, my cousin, the rabbit himself. There's a knowing together. In the Quaker tradition, perhaps some of you are in the Quaker tradition, they will at times have an hour-long prayer meeting, silent meeting, before a business meeting, before a budget meeting for a meeting house. That is, they will prepare the ground for approaching what seem to be ordinary problems so that they're approaching the issues out of a different mind. It's not that there's prayer and then there's business. There's prayer informing how business is conducted, giving us a different mind with which we look at the so-called real world. When it comes to disaster, there too, our approach to it, not a solution to a problem, but our approach, our stance, has everything to do with how connected we are to the earth that's being treated, to the other humans with us. Rilke, Rainer Maria Rilke, died in 1926, felt the horrors of the 20th century and 21st century that he wouldn't live to see, but he felt them approaching. And he wrote, I hear the distances say things that I can't bear without a friend, and I can't love without a sister. I hear the distances say things that I can't bear without a friend, and I can't love without a sister. Have I got another minute? I want to give another example of the world becoming bearable with accompaniment. That same uncle who for a while had that house in the Greek olive orchard, in his youth he was an anthropologist and a professor of anthropology. And he had done his field work among the headhunters in New Guinea. And unbeknownst to me and my brother and sister, he actually had a severed head that was shrunken, in fact, two of them. And they were all wrapped up in newspaper in a wooden kind of a crate, small crate. And it was up in the attic of my parents' house. My uncle lived far away, And there in the attic with jumbles of other things was this crate. So my brother and my sister and I were one day exploring. We were about 7, 8, and 10. And we were exploring in the attic and we came upon this crate. So, of course, we opened it. We didn't know what was inside. Inside were these old, crunkled old papers and things and sawdust and stuff that had been used to preserve this head, two heads. And we took out these horrifying things, as they seemed to us, and they were shriveled and frightening with weird strands of hair and gunk on them, and they were just horrifying. We and so we had our various reactions. My brother's reaction, this was in the attic. He ran down 2 flights and then out into the backyard and across the backyard to the huge oak tree that was there and threw his arms around it and wept. How do we make the unbearable and man's inhumanity to man something we can endure? Well, we need help enduring glories too. I think my time is up, but I'm still going to end with something else, a poem. And here's the poem. It's also about accompaniment and knowing things differently. It's from the late, great Robert Frost. Oh, it depends on everyone being clear what the word, because it ends with this, the word rue, R-U-E, rue as in regret or feel bad about. In the past tense, rude, but not R-U-D-E, but rude, R-U-E-D. Something you rued today and something you rued yesterday. Here we go. The way a crow shook down on me the dust of snow from a hemlock tree has given my heart a change of mood and saved some part of a day I rued. He chooses dust and he chooses hemlock carefully. Not that it didn't happen, but dust and hemlock is about death, and yet he can be light in the face of it. The way a crow shook down on me the dust of snow from a hemlock tree has given my heart a change of mood and saved some part of a day I rued. Thank you so much. I'm so eager to be with you in group form.